Yes, so many things to consider. And, just kind of thinking about your take on how people discover. I mean, I think what's interesting is that as you described each of those scenarios, I could tell you, situations where I've done exactly those things. And so I think there's so many different modes of discovery to consider and to design for and create for. And, this notion of, and it's actually quite frightening as a podcast host to know that, people will listen for a short amount of time and decide, whether or not they're going to stick around. Maybe frightening is not the right word, but I mean, you have to think about that. And it actually reminds me too of any sort of web or mobile app experience. I mean, there's stats that say, if someone shows up on your website and you don't hook them within the first 5 seconds, or, they're faced with a challenge as they start to interact with your experience, they bounce and they go somewhere else where they could get something similar. And so, it's just a good reminder that that people are really quite picky when it comes to first impressions.
Yeah, I think there are first impressions that we make with our eyes by reading, by looking at artwork, but and I know this as a podcaster, but maybe not everybody listening does. One of the great things on the measurement front that has evolved over the past couple of years is better insight into time spent listening and listener drop-off within episodes. So most podcasters can log into Spotify for Podcasters or log into Apple Podcasts Connect or log into their hosting provider and get a sense, minute by minute, second by second, where they're losing people. And across every project I've ever worked on, the sharpest drop off is within that first 30, 60, 90 seconds, which makes sense. People are sampling.
Yep.
And first time listeners, tire kickers, as my colleague Matt Hurd likes to call them, are trying something new and pretty quickly deciding if it's for them or not. And so often I will look at an episode that isn't performing as well as we would like, and I'll look at it with a client and they'll see a sharp drop off within the first minute or so. And they'll say, well, what did we do to turn them off? What, did we have the sound of a crying baby or a loud fire engine, or did we do something to drive them away? And sometimes that is the case. Sometimes there is something off-putting. Right? I've worked on episodes where the episode begins with the sound of a crying baby, and maybe we've adjusted that based on the retention that we see. But more often than not, the question isn't what did we do to turn people off? It is what did we fail to do to encourage them to keep listening? What failed to happen? What hook did we fail to plant? What story did we fail to effectively tease? What didn't we do that made it okay for people to drop off, to feel okay dropping off? And that's the question I'm often trying to answer when I look at the retention graphs, minute by minute, second by second. Where did we lose people? Now, to be really clear, the sharpest drop off is often at the beginning of the episodes, but it is so much less sharp than the sharp drop offs we see in video, right? So I think audio is maybe a little more forgiving, but the core principle is the same. Hook them from the beginning. And this is a big difference between podcasting and broadcast radio, for instance. In broadcast radio, you're constantly reminding people the name of the station, what your name is, who the guest you're talking to is, what song just played, what song's coming up, what time is it, what's the weather. You're constantly having to catch people up because as a linear medium, radio, people are tuning in and out all the time. With podcasting, everybody or nearly everybody starts at minute 0, second 0. And that is a core difference between the on-demand nature of podcasting and the sort of linear, always-on nature of radio. And I think we forget that at our peril